This is talk show host Charles Goyette, author of The Dollar Meltdown, and I'd like to introduce you to Doug Cloud, who joins us by telephone. Doug is running as a Republican in the 6th Congressional District in Washington, area around Tacoma, running for Congress. He is a former deputy prosecutor. He is an attorney in private practice and on the line with us. Doug, how do you do, sir?
I'm fine. How are you, Charles?
It's good to get a chance to visit with you. I did my basic training up in your neck of the woods many, many years ago.
At Fort Lewis?
Yes.
Wow.
I think it was 2 months in the wintertime, and I never saw the mountain.
Yes.
It's beautiful country, though. You're a native of that area, aren't you?
I am. I've been here all my life, and I've certainly seen the changes that have transpired.
How is your campaign going? Tell me about the race, who you're running against, what you have for a primary and a general.
Well, I am running ultimately in the general against Norm Dix, who is a 33-year incumbent.
That's about long enough, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. He's been certainly inured into the Washington, D.C. culture to his detriment. Now, there is also a young man who has just entered the race, Jesse Young, in the primary as a Republican as well.
So how do you distinguish yourself in a race like that with a 33-year veteran incumbent?
Well, I am basically running a campaign against corruption, the institutionalized corruption that Congress has allowed itself to become. And we have a prime example right here in this district of Mr. Dix, who had just recently gotten through an ethics probe in the House, and also faces apparently an investigation at the current time by the Justice Department.
Well, it's nice to have an opponent who's been softened up by criminal prosecution.
Well, there's no criminal prosecution yet.
Not yet.
Well, I got to be, I'm just, my understanding is he's under investigation, and that's the extent of it at this time.
Mm-hmm. What may he have been up to?
Well, I think this is related to the PMI lobbyist group out of Pennsylvania that has come under such scrutiny for essentially influence peddling.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time we've run across that. All right, let's talk about your views about some of the specific issues. And assuming that you prevail and that you're sworn into Congress next January, what do you intend, what do you believe can be done about the state of the nation and failing prosperity, and what do you intend to do about it?
Well, quite frankly, I think most of the solutions to our problems lie in our existing Constitution. However, it has to be interpreted in its more traditional fashion, predating the expansive readings of the 1930s and thereafter. We had originally a Constitution that severely limited the federal government power, and that was understood to be its function. The federal government was to be a limited government. Yet, there is no limit at this time. Obviously, the Constitution has been undermined, and we must go back to the Constitution the way it was originally intended.
Well, how do you see the economic crisis in America? I mean, it's the view of a great number of people, I am among them, who believe that a very, very serious crisis is already now, so to speak, baked into the cake, and it can't be averted, even should we get a number of persons like yourself in Congress who show some restraint. The money's already been spent. The debts are very, very real. They're out of control, and they're beyond what this economy or the American people are willing to service.
Well, I want the job. I think I can handle it, and I think the solutions are there. First of all, we have to let our economy function in a free market way. Obviously, the prices of all goods and services must be allowed to adjust to their true market clearing price. Once we get to that level, things will pick up immediately. We have to write off bad debts, and we have to recognize reality for what it is. We have to free the American people from the over-restrictive regulations on their own labor, which inhibits the ability of employers to hire them. Those are just for starters. We have to have realistic economic views in order to solve our economic problems. Right now, our only economic view in the current administration and throughout most of the Washington establishment is print more money, spend more money, debase the dollar, enslave the American public in a heavier and heavier burden of debt and taxation, which, of course, is tyrannical.
What do you have to say about the role of the Federal Reserve in this operation, and what should be done about them?
Well, the Federal Reserve ultimately is the trigger of any financial crisis since its establishment, through its role of inflating credit and allowing credit to result in an overextended state, which of course results in a bust. The problem being prices don't adjust rapidly enough to coincide with the extent of the bust, creating slack at every level of the economy. Our current administration seems to be hell-bent on holding up that falling price structure to the detriment of the economy and the American people.
Can the Federal Reserve be more than audited? Can the Federal Reserve be eliminated from our monetary system?
I think ultimately, I don't think it can be done immediately, but I think certainly we must consider that as an option. But I think initially we have to accept the fact that there should be competing currencies of every type, including privately based gold-backed currencies, in which case we'll see who has the better argument.
Yeah, it's pretty persuasive that if the U.S. dollar is respectable and dependable, we shouldn't need any legal tender laws. People don't have to be forced by law to use a currency of self-evident value, do they?
No. And another thing that's implicit in that whole argument is the fact that we have to have a steady, reliable, constitutionally based rule of civil and criminal law in this country. That is a very prime motivating factor for our country's prosperity through the years. People could rely on a contract being a contract. It's specified in a constitution. Yet here we have now contracts being ripped up all the time in the form of congressional action.
That's interesting. You certainly have a background that would give you more expertise on that. Give me a description of what you mean. How does that problem manifest?
Well, the rule of law has been undermined most recently by the government forcing lenders to, or at least threatening to force them, to write down principals on existing loans. Now, if that is a proper market clearing mechanism, the private market should determine it. Perhaps it is. However, the government picking the winners and losers inevitably screws things up by misallocating resources, more often than not, at a higher rate to the fraudulent characters.
Well, you'll send all of Congress packing and on vacation then, because this is their sole occupation. I mean, even more than creating foreign wars is fixing prices. It's something that they do with a great deal of enthusiasm, and they do little else really. If you take a broad view of the way prices are fixed, this is the sole occupation of Congress today.
Right, and it's killing us. It's absolutely killing us. If we don't allow the beautiful, wonderful genie of price flexibility and freedom of contract to exist, we cannot have the ultimate prosperity we deserve, which is probably at least twice what we have now.
Yeah, you would think it would be a pretty self-evident axiom that there is a very, very close relationship of economic freedom and prosperity, but I guess a lot of people don't really get it, Doug.
Well, now that is the challenge for us candidates. We have to make that clear to the public, and really that is the key: making the complex simple, because the public can understand these things. They understand it intrinsically, but they need a leader to express that, and that's the real challenge for any candidate.